Okay, on to panel 3. This includes two speakers, two very powerful speakers who I'm honored to bring up to the stage. I know one of them, at least, both of you here last year? Just one. Rima was, okay. And the title of this panel is Innovating with Confidence, Women Leading in Tech and Business. So put your hands together for the founder and CEO of Green Sands Equity. It's San Francisco based, which is where I was born, by the way. Rima Khan, please make your way up to the stage. And then also the CEO and co-founder of Auctionomics. I hope I got that right. This is based in Palo Alto, just south of San Francisco, of course. Sylvia Consul Badalana.
Now they can hear us. I was really looking forward to it because it's two friends having a conversation on stage, really. And we both took early morning flights this morning, changed into our clothes in the handicapped bathroom at the airport, and here we are. And you, LA women, intimidate us, so we were just wondering, are we wearing okay clothes?
I'm hiding my shoes behind the table.
People in the Bay Area, yeah, I know, I was carrying my heels. Okay, Sylvia, so tell us what you do. And you know what, I'll tell you what she does. So Sylvia has a PhD from Stanford in economics, and she's the co-founder of Auctionomics, a company that does multi-billion-dollar auctions. She's also the winner of an Emmy Award last year. For innovation, not for acting, I know she could have been, but for innovation in finance for television. And she and her, and I often say this the wrong way, her co-founder is a Nobel laureate in economics, but I often say Sylvia and her co-founder have the Nobel Prize in economics. And it's such a pleasure to be here on stage with you.
Fantastic. And this is Rima. Besides being my queen, she's also the CEO of a 9-digit venture capital funds in a very male-dominated world where she absolutely rocks. Governments at large seek her advice. She is an ambassador to the United Nations. She is a very well-known and respected philanthropist, and she's a trustee at the SETI Institute. And let's not forget, among all of that, she's also a mother.
Of two. And in case you were impressed with me, let me just tell you what SETI stands for so you can lose all respect for me. SETI, or at least be suspicious of me. SETI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It used to be a division of NASA and now standalone. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So Sylvia, did you as a child want to grow up and be the CEO of a finance or economics company?
Truth or dare, it's a yes. So I have a funny story. When I was 7, there was a school assignment, and we had to write up something that had the subject line, me and money. I wrote up at 7, this thing was like, yes, I will be running this company, I will be like pretty much like doing this with money, doing that. Everybody made fun of me for writing that. I'm like, I'm going to do it. Yes, I guess, child. Especially, it's a common minimum denominator school that I was at back then, so that was not one thing. So, but guess what? Dreams can be true. Where there's a will, there is a way. So just dream big, everybody. Who cares if they laugh? Let's see who laughs last.
Wonderful. I think it's you now.
Rima, what makes you a whole person? What else do you do besides academic intellectuality or socially growing up through college, etc.? And how does it help you?
I'm so tired of being a whole person. I actually want to be like a smaller person. I want to look like Lucia. But okay, what makes a whole person? So, of course, you excel at academics, you do all the right things, but I think one activity that I did, Samira, one activity that I did in college, which really I feel has helped me more than anything academically that I did, was speech and debate. And I loved what Marla said about do what scares you. I remember that I was very young when I started college. I was like 12 years old. And so I would never talk to anybody because everyone was like my aunts and uncles to me, they're like grown-ups. And so I did not have a single friend through college. And so I realized at some point that it's important to talk. So being a nerd, I'm like, where do I do to learn if there's a class on talking? So I went to speech and debate And then I started to, and then I remember first time I came to California was in a debate competition, and then I was like the national champion, I don't know in what year, but something like that. But you learn to persuade people, you learn to defend yourself, and you had judges literally judging you. And it was boys and girls and everything, and West Point Military Academy, Harvard, Stanford, everywhere. So I think that's what really gave me a lot of confidence, to think fast.
Excellent.
Okay, so what is, okay, this starts with a joke. So Sylvia, as you can tell, she looks very fit and all. The joke about her is that we both run very serious companies and businesses, but we're also lighthearted. So there's a picture of Sylvia playing volleyball on the beach where we all talk about her butt being really good. So Sylvia, tell us about the relationship of sports to your career.
I was going to go the different direction, but anyways. How many of you do sports, ladies? Raise of hand if you do sports. Excellent. So how many of you have an executive coach? Executive coach. So a lot of men, especially in Silicon Valley, hire an executive coach, a coach that teaches you how to be in uncomfortable situations, how to be a better CEO, how to be a leader. It's a thing in Silicon Valley. Instead of doing that, I do something completely different. I play competitive beach volleyball with my partner is, kid you not, a Stanford varsity player. She's 21 years old. And our coach is a former Olympian. And I compete. I come to LA very often to compete against this fit professional 20, like less than half my age now, actually. I want to say half, but less than half my age. Beach volleyball players who are very good. They're amazing. They're way better than me. So what's the only thing I got? Focus. If I get intimidated and scared, which I am, but if I transmit that to my body and therefore fail to be completely focused, they obliterate me on the field. Therefore, somebody earlier talked about, like our introducer spoke about being uncomfortable, doing things that make you uncomfortable on a daily basis. For me, it's beach volleyball with these fit, strong, competitive ladies, and knowing that I cannot lose focus. I'm uncomfortable. They will pick on me, seeing my stallion beach volleyball partner who's 20 on the Stanford varsity team. They will pick on me. I'll have to be focused. I'll have to be strong. And that's my executive coaching. Then I go in a room full of men doing a multi-billion-dollar negotiation. That's easy. I think I have a question for you now. Rima, how did you get started? Tell us your secret.
I'm still getting started. I mean, I like to tell the story, especially among women, because sometimes when you have, and I don't mean to say that either of us have gotten to a point where it looks either intimidating or unachievable or difficult. I want to make it look approachable by telling you this story, and I don't tell this story at, let's say, World Economic Forum or something, right? I would tell it here. At a baby shower, okay? I was at a baby shower and I was talking about my ideas about, I really think that investing in Spotify would be a really great idea. And I was switching out of, having a corporate career to wanting to do something of my own. And there was another woman standing there smoking a cigarette. She's like, I fucking hate baby showers. I was like, because you didn't have any kids, I don't mind them. So I was like, okay, but, I can relate to all kinds of people, also her. And she goes, yeah, I just got all this money from my dad. Sure, I'll put some money behind it. And so she invested with me as my investor, and I was a GP. And that was the first investment we made in Spotify. And then from there onwards, I just started going. And of course, now we are at like $1 billion. Obviously not from baby showers, all of it. Later on, we got, institutional investors, family offices, all of that, and we proved ourselves. But what it took was conviction from another woman at a baby shower saying, hey, here's like $500,000, go do it. Oh. Same question for you.
Same question, all right. Same answer. It was at a baby shower. I'm joking. So no, it was a little bit the opposite in this case. So how many of you remember the mortgage-backed security crisis? I think everyone, right? So back then, there was $1 trillion distressed assets on the bank sheets. The Treasury calls up Paul Milgram, who then became my co-founder, and says, can you do an auction to sell this $1 trillion distressed assets? So he had a design. He had something in mind to be used, and he needed a co-founder. Now, being a visionary man, he decided to put the bet on a young, completely then inexperienced, I was just a PhD student woman. He invited me to coffee at Upa Cafe and said, will you be my co-founder? So that's how we started. We did not run the auction for $1 trillion distressed asset because that was done under the table by the banks. There was no auction. But that was how it all started. And then a lot of challenges because then we kept doing the business anyways. I was supposed to I am, the CEO running the business, but I was a PhD nerd, so I had no idea what to do back then. And so having to make it up without mentors was quite hard, but then it paid off.
Amazing. So, question for you, Sylvia. Actually, this is a question for both of us, and it's something that you should all ask yourself as well. What feels good and what doesn't feel good about success at the pace that we've had?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm looking forward to hearing your answer too.
Scars.
Some women up here already shared this a little bit. So there's something I was not expecting since generally I love cheering for others and I love strong women that succeed. When I won the Emmy in technology last year, it was a lot of celebration and did some nice huge party, did some nice postings with the prize, and I was very excited. I felt happy. Actually, I became a target. And so then I got targeted by some very organized strategic takedown moves that were that happen. I then have heard from many others when you become a little too much in the spotlight. That unfortunately does happen. And that's not something I was expecting. And so that is the part I don't like about, when you get some success, it somehow feels nice, but then you also become a target. So then that's a challenge of do you keep being yourself? Do you become a more timid person hiding in the shadows? What do you do? So that's the part that I am now learning to grasp with. And I would love any mentorship from this room. And from you, Rima, what's your story?
Again, like I said, I'm still working on the success part. But no, I feel I don't look at myself and measure how far I've come often, although there is some value to keeping those gratitude journals. I feel like I have such a long way to go still in terms of my goals. But what feels good is, honestly, just being taken seriously. Because there is just a lot of power in that once you, at some point, have clarity about what you want to do, what you want to invest in. We invest in deep tech, like brain-computer interface, nuclear fusion, quantum computing, space technology. So we do really hard stuff, right? When I feel like we have clarity in that, it is hard when you come out of nowhere from a baby shower to come and say that, I think I know what I'm doing and this is my record that speaks for itself to be taken seriously. In the beginning, you spend half your time doing the work and the other half convincing people that you know what you're doing. So I think the good part about being where I am today is I don't have to do as much of that convincing, so I can focus more on the work. That's the best part. The bad part about fast success, actually, for me, it's lonely. You keep outgrowing the circles that you grew with, and you don't leave anyone behind, but you still end up doing things where you no longer see them anymore. So it's just really lonely because, every time you go from one line to another, the people who were there, if they weren't going as fast, they're behind and you miss them and I love them. So that's sad.
Thank you for sharing so openly, Rima. In a very male-centric world, don't you miss women?
I do. That's why I'm here. I think that there's only one woman in my company who's my accountant. And everyone else is either men who are 20, 30 years older, or actually my analyst is younger. That's about it. And even this, in Silicon Valley where we are and what we do in the technology industry, it's all men all the time. So it's hard. I think that's why when Oana invited me to come here, immediately in a heartbeat, I showed up. And Oana is speaking of female empowerment, there's two kinds of power. One, where you're so powerful that you're intimidating and you dominate people. There's another kind of power where it's kind of a glow that around it, other people grow bright. And that's Oana's power. My question to you, what bias between men and women do you struggle with?
So, when I'm in the valley, a lot of my friends on the bike with, for example, are VCs. And they're like, yeah, this entrepreneur pitched me. Didn't think the idea was so good, but he's really competitive, so we invested in him because we know he'll do great. And then I hear comments from some woman where the criticism on me is like, oh, she's competitive. Well, I'd say that's a little bit of a bias. I think there is like some attributes that are male attributes that are like said as a positive on the men and said as a negative if it's a woman. I think Sheryl Sandberg had this like ban the word bossy. So I have 2 young daughters, and like I want them to be outspoken. I want them to have great ideas. I want them to be competitive in the right way. In the right way, meaning when they are in a sports competition or something, they will compete, they will do their best. If they lose, they will go and shake the hand of the winner. Healthy competition. And so that's the double standards are something that obviously I struggle with in the business world.
You know, it's funny. Well, first of all, yes. I have the opposite kind of feeling. I feel like I want more opportunity to be a girl. I'm always the dude. I put on my pink dress today. I like it. But I just feel that in my world, I work really hard in what I do. It's a male-centric world. Yes, I mean, I actually often say I'm the least competitive person I've ever met because I'm doing my own thing and I want to be better than what I am this year compared to last year, and I want to keep going. And my dad used to say this, and I know it's some famous philosopher, I don't know from where, who said, there was somebody who said, who drew a line and said, I'm going to give you another pencil and make this line shorter. And the first thing I asked for is like an eraser, if I'm going to make that line shorter. And they said, no, you have a pencil, so what do? You draw another line that's bigger. You don't have to cut someone else down to go further. So my focus has been that. But I feel that as a woman, I don't always want to have my game face on. I don't always want to be so tough and, outspoken. I kind of want people to take me seriously when I'm gentle and kind. And I think that's something that the society is robbing us of, is the opportunity for us to kind of be able to take that. We both are obviously very strong women, but we also have that side. And I feel that it doesn't, the world doesn't cater to it. Okay, last one. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story about how I met Sylvia, and then we'll talk about the advice for the room. So the first time I met Sylvia there was an invitation that said, oh, someone just won the Nobel Prize in economics. Would you like to come? I didn't come for you. I went to the party. I didn't know Sylvia. So I go to the party with my colleague, and we're there. And, we're kind of like, we live in a part of town that is more, established. These guys are still like, in Palo Alto, and they're wearing their hoodies and whatnot. So we went to that thinking, okay, let's go see what these guys are up to. I'm sure there'll be a star that emerges from them at some point. So I went there, and it was someone else's party, I think Lee or someone. And then Sylvia walks in, and she's so tall, and she's already and that day she's wearing heels. She's even taller. And then so she comes in, says, hello, my name is Sylvia. Welcome to the party. And then she tells you about like where everything is and what the lay of the land is. And I loved how Sylvia is one of those people who has like, even if she doesn't know anybody in the room, she has clarity. She knows what she's decided about, what she thinks this is about. And then she offers it to you. So her clarity and her warmth is what really got me. So those are, I think, your absolutely most beautiful qualities. But now, what advice would you have for the other women in the room? And what advice did you get that you think really made you who you are? And I said clarity and command for you.
Well, I cannot go there without telling my story of my impressions of Rima, which also gets the attributes that I really
We didn't talk about this, Sylvia, I don't know.
With courage and integrity, carried away with confidence, brilliance, and elegance. But let me give you the context for that first impression. So after that party she invited me to this one event. And we're talking about, she has the high society of San Francisco there. We're talking the ballet crowd with a lot of jewelry, very well dressed up, high society. What is she doing there? She brings in conmen from the prison And she is putting a taboo that is not discussed in those circles on the table of like, it's more dignified if people in prison can do jobs, can start companies from in there, get some training. And she, with such confidence and elegance, is discussing a topic with the comment there that is a complete taboo for this society, that she makes it cool, exciting, and convinces them all to join in help to do this human rights problem. And it's a tough thing with that crowd, and she made it the coolest thing ever. So, my advice for the room is related to that. And it goes back to what my father told me when I was very little. And he said, girl, people will either hate you or love you. No one will be indifferent to you. You need to just keep going and do what you're doing, because you will never be able to please everybody. Okay? So go, daddy. What's your advice to the room, Rima?
So again, like, look, we're being daddy's girls right now. My dad's advice to me was, he said so my mother is this very elegant, she's a comparative literature professor, a very elegant woman, very well-spoken. All my dad's friends were always in love with her. Everybody was always in love with her. And very soft-spoken. So she would always say, Rima, please speak gentler. I never did. My dad, on the other hand, was like this rough around the edges kind of engineer, entrepreneur, all of that, right? So his advice to me was that, so I always struggled with like my mom was often critical of my dad, like, can you please put on something better? Can you please do this? And my dad at the same time appreciated what my mom's, elegance was about. But he said this, he said, look, fall in love with what you care about and just go do it. Just follow your passion and curiosities, and how you look in the process is a byproduct. That's not who you are. You're not supposed to know who you are, and neither is the world. You're just supposed to do what feels right and just continue to do it and be principled about it. Defining yourself is not that important. It's like an outside thing to do. I wanted to say something about the prison thing. So they actually live here in LA. I met these two guys who spent 17 years in prison, one for drug dealing and the other one for robbing 17 banks. And they were both teenagers when they got arrested, and they spent 17 years in prison. When they came out, they started a company with $11 million in revenue. So what is it that I wanted to highlight about them was they were black, and they were kids, and they were smart as hell, but they couldn't find an outlet for their intelligence. I remember as a joke that drug dealer is like, you don't know anything about being CEO. The kind of people who walk through walls for you is like, when I was a drug dealer, my employees. But he really had good advice. So what I'm trying to say is opportunity is everything, and channeling your power is everything. My advice for the room is the same. That's, don't worry about what you look like to anybody. Just do what you have to do, and yeah, that's it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
What a dynamic duo the two of you are. You're going to take that show on the road. Rima Khan and Dr. Sylvia Consul Badalana. Am I saying that correctly? Absolutely. Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for your empowering words today.
Thank you.
Yes. And I wish you were at my baby shower, by the way.